One of the most important parts of making a good platformer is to have a good level editor. Because having a good level editor allows you to create levels faster, which allows you to test more ideas, and it also allows you to keep your motivation high, because there is less friction between your level ideas and actually putting them into the game. If making a good level editor allows you to make levels 4 or 5 times faster, it's definitely worth it, because you would make 80 or 100 levels in the time it would take you to make 20 levels if you were using a bad level editor. And here, to make World 1, I actually used a very bad level editor, because I used Unity's object placement system directly. I didn't use anything special. So what I would do is just go in here, drag these objects, add them as a child to the room, then switch to the move tool, move the object somewhere right, then switch to the rect tool and adjust the size of the object, and so on. It's fine, but it could definitely be a lot faster. So here's the level editor that I made. Here is the level editor UI. Here are all the objects that you can place in the world. I fetch all the interactable objects in the assets folder and show their images here. And when you click the image of an object, it gets selected, and in the scene view, you get a preview of that object. And I can just click my left mouse button to place these objects. And this essence here is a fixed size object. It's always 1 by 1. But there are some other objects, like this dash platform, that are dynamically sized. And this is where the editor really shines, because I can just drag this object however I want, and then that's it. The object is placed, and I can continue placing other objects. I can select another object and place it like so. I also added an undo feature, so it works just like any other Unity system. And the tile map part of the editor still works just fine. I can place normal and background tiles, and I can delete them. Also, for some reason, now they always add these side buttons to mouses, and I never use them. I haven't used them once in my life. But this is actually a very good use case for that, because I can now use these buttons to switch between entities, and so I never have to use my keyboard when designing levels. I can pan around with my mouse, zoom in with my mouse, place entities with my mouse, and switch entities. Also, you might notice these arrows right here. Those are also very useful. One problem I faced while making levels before was that some of the levels didn't touch, and I had to make them touch manually by aligning their coordinates. But that's very time consuming, and it's very obvious that I just want them to touch each other. So here, with this up arrow, I can just make the level touch the level above, and when I press the left arrow, it touches this level on its left. And also one more thing, let's say I want to connect these levels right here, and I just messed around with the position of this room. Even if they touch each other, sometimes there are these little gaps, misalignments in the grid. These buttons can also fix that. So when I press down, even if there is nothing to collide below this room, it aligns itself to the same grid as the room near it, which is great. And now, just to really see how much faster this new editor really is, I'm going to remove all entities from this room and try to replicate all the entities using the old and the new editor to see how much faster I really am. And okay, that seems about right. Now I will use the new level editor. I will copy the room, paste it across, remove all the entities, and start. So, okay, some of the placements are wrong, but I didn't want to waste time on that, and I don't know the exact timing now, but that was definitely a lot faster. And if I can create levels that much faster, I'll have a lot more creative motivation. It took quite a while to get everything right for this editor, but all those little quality of life improvements will decrease development time by a lot.
Apart from the level editor, I also worked on a lot of visual stuff this week. For example, this water. You might remember from the third devlog that I made a water shader with reflection in it. It was fine, but it was kind of static and didn't feel like water. So here I tried to simulate some water waves. It feels very nice in the game, it feels very dynamic, and really makes the water feel like water. It uses these invisible blocks to detect when the player enters and exits the water, and each block inherits a portion of the player's vertical velocity, and then that block acts as a spring. It goes back and forth, and each spring spreads its energy to the neighboring springs, which creates these water ripples. I also rewrote some of the reflection code. Now the water reflection is way better than before, I think. There are three parts to this effect: transparency, reflection, and noise scrolling. If you look at the moving platform on the left, you can see that as it approaches the water, the reflection gets smaller and smaller, and as it starts touching the water, the reflection starts to disappear. And when the block is fully inside the water, there is no reflection, and all we can see is the block inside the water. A similar thing happens with the player here. A large portion of their body is sunk into the water, and we can see the body as this bluish color because we are looking at it through the water. And there is the player's hair, which we can see clearly, and the hair also has a reflection. And this creates a really nice effect where you can see objects underneath the water, but also the reflections of the objects above the water. And the last detail here is horizontal distortion. As you can see, the reflections are not perfect. There is some rippling going on. And that rippling effect increases in speed as you move away from the water surface. You can see that objects near the surface are getting distorted slowly, and as you go down, the distortions get faster and faster. Next up, I changed something about the rolling mechanic, which I think makes the game a lot better. Previously, you were able to roll down a wall. Now I disallow that, so when you go off a cliff, you just continue moving forward. This makes it easier for the player to leave a surface and connect to a different surface. And as you can see in this clip, the player can move for a long time like this as long as there are no obstacles. Which is really nice because I see rolling as a movement option that blurs the line between moving on a surface and moving up a wall. Normally those two things are very different, and you have to break your flow to switch from one to another. But rolling is not like that. When you are rolling on the ground and come to a wall, you just continue to roll. And that keeps the flow. After that, I added a squish that animation. Now the player physically squishes when they're trapped between two objects. And now the player can actually squish quite a lot without dying. And that's really nice because it looked really unintuitive when the player died, because they were squished the width of 1 pixel. And I also created the tile map and the background art for the second world. I wouldn't say it's finished. I think the background and the foreground is blending too much right now. But other than that, I really like the dirt tiles and the trees in the background. And that's about it for this week. Now that the movement is mostly done and I have a really good level editor, I'll probably continue making a lot more levels and just testing different ideas.